able to see my. Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. Good. Okay. So the goal is to create an Excel like a Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets like formula or calculation creator. So if you're in right now, if you're using our tool, we're building a bunch of math steps. So there's like a rounding step and a adding step and very specific specialized steps. But it's a very cumbersome way of doing math operations when you're doing a lot of different things. Like if I have to add 3 things and then multiply them by something else and then round that down, you end up with 5 different steps on the canvas. Or you just end up using the custom JavaScript or the execute JavaScript step, which is for us is like a failure. If someone's using that step, that means we've done something wrong. And so the idea is to see what the best way to demonstrate this is. So if I want, actually, let me create a step template to show it. I'll add a text box. This is just so I have something to play with. Okay, so before, if we were doing a math operation, like imagine this was a multiply 2 values step, there would be 2 inputs. And so you would put in the first merge field for first value and a merge field for the second value, and it would add those 2, and then the output of the step would be the sum of those 2 things. So there will be steps like that, but it's very cumbersome. What we want to do is create a step that has a big text input, like just like a text area, where I can do something like so I could do something basic like that. And so I'm saying merge field 1 plus merge field 2, and then take the sum of those 2 and multiply it by 3. So it's something that would work. This would actually work behind the scenes if it's just JavaScript, right? But then start to allow people to use Excel-like formulas. So something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it's just a text input that allows for the insertion of merge fields that are merge field references that are tokenized in this way. Because behind the scenes, if you're looking at this, it's this.get whatever. But to be able to insert merge fields as tokens like that, and then be able to compose a formula as if you were writing it for Excel. And so that's one aspect of it. And then the other thing is that you would compose this. So let me get rid of the second text box just to get it out of the way. So there would be one section of the UI which is a text area for composing your formula. But then as you're going along, the step would be detecting which merge fields you've referenced in it. And then there would be, just add something, a test area. Oh, that didn't do much. I give it a label. So as I'm typing this and as I add like a merge field 1, merge field 2 reference, then in this test area, boxes would appear where I can supply a value for merge field 1 and a value for merge field 2. and then click and then run this actual formula against the test inputs and get a value. Does that make sense?
Huh. Interesting. Still, what is the usage? Do we need to add functions to it, or they would type it by themselves? I mean, the clients, or how it should work?
Yeah, I think so. We would need to give them a list of options.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we could just provide them help text, but I think maybe there would be a little selector or something above the input that would allow you to choose. That there would be like. Let's see, where is it?
Yeah, some kind of select, drop down with options.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, different functions
they
like sum, I don't know, multiplier, floor, or something else.
yeah, so it would be like it would give the name of the thing so they could learn how to type it, but then also like or,
Explanation of what they do.
yeah, exactly. So when they choose it from the drop down, then it would just maybe add that formula to the insertion point with an opening parentheses. So if I like chose that from like they say, so sum from the thing, it would insert that. So whether or not, so in this context, whether this behaves as a text box actually or doesn't really matter. Behind the scenes, it needs to be compiling this into an actual JavaScript expression. So replacing things as needed with native JavaScript ways of expressing that concept, or using Lodash if you want. I think there is a Lodash math function for floor, for example. Yeah. So basically, the UI needs to be compiling this expression into JavaScript. And the reason why I say the UI needs to be able to be doing that because we need to be able to test it at that level. And so if you compile it, then you can insert the test value where these tokens are. But also because when you run the flow, I don't want the flow execution to have to compile this expression into JavaScript every time. You should do it just if the UI does it, then when you save and execute or save and activate the flow, then it's compiled once, and that JavaScript translation is just available immediately in the execution.
And could you repeat once more again what is gonna be on the test area? Let's say it just summarizing the value and show the result or something like that. Execution of a function. Yeah.
So if I like type that, then the result of this thing is going to be 8, and the test thing will have nothing in it. But if I do, this variable picker doesn't have any variables in it because there's no preceding steps, so I'm just simulating it. So if I have this input, then in this test area, there would be my merge field and then a box where I could put a value. And so if I put, so this is 3 plus 5, so 8. If I put 2 in that thing, then the test result would be 10.
All right.
Because the test area can know what is the list of variables that I'm inserting in there.
All right. So to understand the result and then.
Yeah.
All right. That's all, I guess, or is there would be something else?
So there's just some details, and I added them to the. So when this recording finishes, if you could just save it and then like insert a link to it in the ticket. But so the operators we need to support are, I forgot multiplication. And these should, with the exception, I don't know if the power one works. I don't think it works in JavaScript, but the rest of these should translate just fine. And then these, so I included a link to descriptions of Excel functions and what they actually do. So these Excel functions for now, and then we can think about adding these more advanced ones in the future if this works out well. But so the other thing is, this is only for doing math operations on numbers. So they couldn't do something like Boolean operations or whatever. They can't do textual operations. Like it's just for math. But we do need to be open to the possibility that may think that this is a number, but it's actually a string containing a number.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of so at runtime, basically, it needs to look at the list or it needs to go through each variable that was used in the calculation, check to see its type. If the type is number, then just use it. If the type is string, then try to parse float. I wrote this down in here. Try to parse float, and if that works, then use it. If it creates an error, then that's it. The step's done. You just throw an error.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can, in that case, we can enable error handling leg, so that if the user makes a mistake, so it should do its best to try and interpret everything as a number. But if it can't, then if they don't have process errors on, then the flow crashes, and if they do have process errors on, then it goes down this leg.
Yeah, you have not numeric value in your merge field or something like that.
Yeah, if you send, and this will happen a lot. They're passing like.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if this is 11, great. If it's this, that works too. If it's anything that can be parse floated into a number, it's fine. But if they do, if they forget this and we get an object, then if process error is off, then the flow crashes. Process error is on, then it exits down the error leg and says, unable to evaluate, that value because it's of type whatever.
All right.
So I just want to reiterate the importance of part of whatever you want to call it, like compiling this expression into JavaScript in the UI. First, so I mean, it helps in testing, but it means also that we can do all of that logic just in the UI. We don't have to have it in the UI for testing and also in the step logic. But also because it's not the heaviest of processing requirements, but it only has to be done once when the flow is being generated. When you save and execute, then when it's running the step logic, it's just the UI component that builds this should just output I'm not exactly sure how to output it into the code. I output it as like so when you add a code expression, code input to the logic, there's different modes for it. I think if we have JavaScript and we have it validate as an expression, let me look. If you look at the test tab, so that I don't know if that'll work or not. But there's also, if you notice, it's putting it as an asynchronous function. So something like that, like get the expression in here either as an asynchronous self function or as an expression that will work. So the UI component. I mean, you can do this as a wildcard if you want. You can do it as a UI component either way. But the purpose of it will be to compile the expression into JavaScript, and then it just needs to output that JavaScript into the logic somehow.
Igor, you need to check it once more again, yeah?
Well, I think I'll be rereading description in the GitLab.
Well, there's not much here.
Yeah.
I just gave you a list of which formulas to handle, or which functions to handle, and what operators. But if you have any questions, we should try and deal with it now.
The question is about inserting operators.
Yeah.
That means I need to check position of the cursor in the text box to insert correct. I'm not sure I know how to do this. Is this like regular text insertion, or is a specific with view, or maybe KinUI functions to do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it's possible because, like, for example, this is view, right? So it knows, even though I'm selecting something outside of this component, it remembers when I click on that, it remembers where this thing doesn't take focus, you know? So there's some technique for it. I'm sure, I don't know how to do it offhand, but I think Googling it or asking one of our content team members will be able to tell you. It's maybe tricky for a drop-down menu. That might be tricky, actually, you know, that you mentioned it, because drop-down menu is almost impossible to have it not take focus. I don't know, whatever solution you can come up with that works will be fine. We can always improve it later.
Okay, I guess I'll be doing it by trial and error way.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, you could do something like the input component. There has to be like a lose focus event of some sort, right? So if you hook that event, if when the component loses focus, if it stores the memory of the insertion point in that text input, then when you click on something else, it can insert it at that point. So like this component has, I'm sure it has some sort of like on lose focus hook. So, you know, as I'm typing, if the insertion point is, you know, it knows that right now the insertion point is 6. And then I click on some other UI component. When it loses focus, if you've hooked that, well, actually, then it can remember that. And then so if that component adds something at the insertion point, then it can add it. If it remembers that, it can put it there. It's weird because notice, I don't know if you can see on my screen, but when I click out of this, there's like a faint.
We can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
So I don't know if that's a UI bug or if that's some sort of a feature hidden in it where it's remembering. And so whatever, this doesn't matter what this component is, like or whether these, like, you know, we're looking at the OR select or text expression right now, and so it's the thing that takes this or this part and renders it in this display as this little nugget. Whether we reuse that same thing or just build our own, it doesn't really matter. It just needs to look similar. It needs to be that the merge field is tokenized in this way.
So, and what if do they have an option to add merge fields by pressing like how do we add actually merge fields if you need to add 3 of them or 4, and we need to choose places where we need to put in their field, all of the merge fields? How does it work actually? I mean,
it does.
yeah.
It does work. So yeah, you can just get the someone from our content team can send you the source for this UI component.
All right.
Or you can just extend it.
All right. So to Nikolai or to Petro?
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
it's just the Keen. It's just or UI is just Keen UI.
Yeah, we know that.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's Keen UI, but then this stuff is obviously customization. So yeah, it may be easiest just to extend our text expression, and then make it a text area. Get rid of this, that kind of stuff.
All right. So I guess for now that's so. Or is there anything else? If there would be any questions, we would come up to you once more again to clarify something. But for now, I guess it's pretty much clear.
Okay. Yeah, and so I created the list of, if any of these functions turn out to be really hard to implement for some reason, I don't think they will be, but if they are, just let me know. We can always add them to the future one.
All right. So, and we need to estimate this somehow, yeah?
Yeah.
At this point.
But again, it could just be like just your best guess and just get something else to track against.
Rough scopes once more again, yeah, and we would add it to the GitLab and send you the Slack that we have edited.
Okay. Yeah, and again, if you mind adding the recording, a link to it, and placement of this here.
All right. So, yeah, I guess thank you, Jonathan, for such full explanation of the task. We would watch the video once more again, I guess, and find out the solution.
All right. Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.
Good day.
Thank you. Goodbye.